I absolutely love Christmas, and because I love Christmas, I embarked on a mission to read as many holiday-related romance novels that I could get through in 2 weeks, and I'm going to be ranking all 10 of those books for you today in this video. When I started reading these books, I quickly remembered that holiday books tend to be a bit mid when compared to books outside the genre. That's not to knock on holiday books, I just mean that I think they serve a specific purpose. So instead of doing a normal 1 through 5 star rating, I will talk about the vibes and the holiday cheer and the romance/spice. My thought process is that holiday books are more about the way they make you feel and the delivery of the promise more than they are about being the best piece of literature that you've ever read. You wouldn't pick up a sugar cookie, take a bite, and then get mad that it wasn't gingerbread, and I think holiday books are similar in that way. Also worth noting that my selection process for these books totally chaotic and depended largely on what was available at the library, my Libby app, what I was able to borrow from family and friends, and what went on sale after Thanksgiving. That being said, I do think I ended up reading a good amount of trending books, so hopefully there's something in there for everyone in this ranking. Also, these reviews will be spoiler-free, so no worries there. All right, let's get into it. Coming in at the very bottom of this list at number 10, and possibly earning the title of worst book that I read this year, was Wreck the Halls. The female main character and the male main character are the adult children of 2 famous rock stars that used to be in the same band, but a love triangle torn them apart before the children were born. In present day, the 2 main characters attempt to reunite their mothers and the band for this Wreck the Halls TV performance, largely incentivized by the large sum of money offered by the show's producers. Also, there's this insta-love between the main characters based on an interaction they had as teenagers, so there's that. Honestly, my favorite part of this book is when it ended. It would have been a DNF for me if I didn't regrettably spend my own actual money on it, and I was unable to refund it due to me clinging on to the hope that it was going to get better. It never did. I should have listened to my gut instincts after the very first page. The main characters' names are Melody and Beat. Melody and Beat! Instant red flag. Melody is passable, but Beat? I'm supposed to fall in love with a hunky male main character with a name like Beat? Are you kidding me? The names added nothing to the story other than being a constant reminder on every page that romances in general require a higher suspension of disbelief, and I just couldn't get over it. I never got over it. It was horrible the entire time. I don't even know what I could say about the vibes. There were no vibes. The setup of the story took like 35% of the book to even actually begin, and unexpectedly, the MMC kept alluding to this dark and shameful kink-related secret that didn't actually end up being that atypical in my opinion. It just felt like an unnecessary subplot. The book spent more time around this kink than it did actual Christmas, which, by the way, there was like no holiday cheer in this book. The most Christmassy thing of this whole book was the title, the Wreck the Halls. And I think there was like maybe one snowball fight, but other than that, no Christmas vibes, no coziness. Like, look at this cover. Read this title. There is an expected Christmas component of this story, and it just did not deliver. And because it didn't deliver on that promise, that's honestly why it is ranking at the bottom of my list. Not to mention the insta-love, the awkward romance, the subpar smut, and the atrocious choice in names. I rarely just give a general I don't recommend this book because I believe that most books have an audience somewhere, but you know what? I'm gonna say it. I don't recommend this book to literally anyone. It just did not do anything well. I was so disappointed. Do not recommend. Coming up next at the number 9 spot was The Mistletoe Promise. The Mistletoe Promise was about 2 lonely people that enter into this contract called the Mistletoe Promise, where they pretend to be a couple and it's set to expire Christmas Eve. Like, the main character is legit a lawyer and draws up an actual contract. The fake dating fun and games shortly ensue. The female main character of this book was kind of depressing. Like, the bar was literally on the floor when it came to their relationship. He started the car. The heater and the windshield wipers came on simultaneously, along with a Michael Bublé Christmas album. Is this music okay? I love Bublé, I said. Then Bublé you will have. Honestly, this book was a quick, forgettable read. The vibes were low tier, and there were some unexpectedly heavy topics to include child loss and homicide. Their relationship was very surface level and heavily based on gift-giving, grand gestures, more than it was about actual chemistry. There was a good amount of holiday cheer in this book as the story takes place between the 8 weeks of Thanksgiving and Christmas, and all of the activities that the characters did together were holiday related. There was absolutely no smut in this book, some light kissing, and I would definitely classify this more of a slow burn. There are also several spoonfuls of Jesus, if that matters to you. Overall, just meh. All right, at number 8, we had another hyped book. It was called In a Holidaze. It was like Groundhog's Day meets The Family Stone meets a YA novel where after a summer, the awkward kind of ugly girl comes back and everyone's into her. It was kind of like all of that combined. The main character and her family gather at their family friend's cabin in Utah every single year as their Christmas tradition. At the end of this latest gathering, however, they find out that it will unfortunately be their last as the family friends plan on selling the property. The MC is devastated, as not only is she kind of unhappy with her life and this is the only thing she really has been able to look forward to, but also because she's in love with the family friend's eldest son and has been for years, and she's thinking this is probably going to be the last time she's in the same space as him. On their way home, a car crash triggers this time loop where the MC wakes up back on the plane at the start of the holiday. I truly liked the cabin family gathering coziness of this book. The setting and the Christmas traditions that the characters partook in gave some nostalgic vibes for me. Unfortunately, the romance is where it starts to go downhill for me. The characters acted like teenagers even though they were supposed to be 26 and 29, and their shared sense of humor was weird and exacerbated what I felt like was already a lack of chemistry between the two of them. I found myself cringing more about their dynamic more often than I found it fun. There was some smut, but it was pretty generic, pretty vanilla, and they carried that same awkwardness throughout those scenes, and I wasn't really feeling it. Also, the main character did something at the very end of the book that literally made me want to peel my skin off. That's how cringy it was. It was one of those things that I'm sure was supposed to be charming and they found charming in the story, but when I thought about it happening in real life, I was just like, that is insanely weird and creepy. Absolutely no, gave me the ick. I just did not like this book. Honestly, I felt like I was in a Holidaze trying to get through the plot. 'Tis the season for revenge. I legit thought this book was a Legally Blonde fanfiction at first, set up at Christmas time, which I actually wasn't entirely mad about, as I love Elle Woods, I love Legally Blonde. So the setup of this book is similar. The FMC is dumped by her longtime boyfriend, who's also a lawyer, on Halloween for not being serious enough. She proceeds to enact her revenge by sleeping with her ex's boss, who's the male main character of the book. She also sets out to secure an invite to this elite annual Christmas party the firm hosts that her ex refused to invite her to in years past. When it comes to the premise of the story, this book definitely delivered. I would say the vibes were spicy. This was definitely hands down the smuttiest Christmas book that I read this season. The romance was definitely insta-lust, and there was a sizable age gap between the FMC and MMC that was played into. My biggest gripe with this book is that all the characters just seemed kind of like caricatures. Like, her ex said some pretty abhorrent things that just didn't jive with this idea that he was tolerable for 4 years prior. Also, the MMC just seemed a little bit too perfect, saying all the right things at the right times, doing the right thing at every single turn. Some people do enjoy that. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. The holiday cheer was definitely present in this story and added overall. It wasn't a bad read necessarily, just maybe more smut focused than I typically reach for. But, you know who you are if that's what you're looking for. All right, One Day in December. So, One Day in December has a love at first sight premise. The female MC sees the male MC at a bus stop one snowy day in December. When their eyes meet, it's over, but unfortunately her bus starts to drive away, and she spends the next year searching for who she is sure is her soulmate, only to be introduced to him as her roommate and best friend's new boyfriend at a Christmas party a year later. The story features both of the main characters' perspectives. The vibes of this book were not very One Day in December and was very much more like 10 years of sadness and regret. The story spans 10 years over nearly 400 pages. Honestly, it kind of dragged and the characters were frustrating. It's hard for me to want to root for them based on the premise alone. In terms of Christmas cheer, it was sold to me as a Christmas love story, but Christmas definitely felt more like a background character. Like, in the same way Harry Potter is a Christmas movie, this is a Christmas book, I guess. Christmas happens once a year, but then you gotta deal with the rest of the year. There was like maybe a half spoonful of spice. There were some vague sexual acts, but nothing between the main characters. I didn't really like the MMC. It felt like the chapters of his perspective just made me like him less and less the more that we were in his brain. It's not that I thought the book was bad, it was a semi-interesting story. It just didn't really give me what I was looking for when it comes to a holiday romance. I think if you're into domestic drama, wrong place, wrong time romance, maybe you would like this. It just was a little too much for me. Coming in at number 5 was A Season for Second Chances. This book follows a female MC whose life unravels after her 26-year-long marriage comes to an unceremonious end. She then decides to leave her successful restaurant business and becomes the guardian of a historic seaside estate in the small town of Willow Bay. There, she falls in love with the home and finds friendship with most everyone in the town, except for the grumpy nephew of her cottage's homeowner, who plans to sell the property in the spring. This book contained 2 to 3 page chapters, but overall it was on the longer side, like around 450 pages. It starts right at the moment where the MC's marriage permanently fractures, and then you proceed to be right there with her in the aftermath and setup of the preceding events. This book definitely had charming, cozy small town vibes. There was a quirky local cast, and the setting is well developed. In terms of holiday cheer, I'd rate this on the lower end. The Christmas season doesn't actually start until like 300 pages into the book. In terms of spice, there wasn't anything salacious. It was definitely a slow build and really no hint of romance until about 200 pages in. If you can appreciate a slower pace, you like more descriptions, and you like that kind of small town feel, you might enjoy this book. Oh, also the MMC has a Scottish accent, which I love, so. Coming in at number 4, we have The Santa Suit. The story follows the FMC who is newly divorced and is beginning the next chapter of her life in this old farmhouse that she bought sight unseen. When she moves in, however, she realizes that maybe she purchased more than she bargained for, as the farmhouse is in need of some repairs and the old owners had left a lot of their belongings in the place. Upon sorting through these belongings, she discovers a beautiful Santa suit, and in the pocket of this suit there is a letter to Santa from a little girl basically asking for her father to return home from the war. The main character then sets out to find the origin story of not only the suit, but also the letter. This was my favorite closed-door Christmas romance that I read this season, with a happily ever after ending. It was sweet, it was cozy, and it put a smile on my face. We aren't breaking ground over here, but if you're looking for a cute and easy Christmas book with an older FMC, no smut, I think this is a good choice. Coming in at number 3 was Snowed In. This book follows the FMC who, prior to the present storyline, was a runaway bride. She left her ex at the altar and fled to the city to start a new life. 5 years later, she runs into someone that both attended her wedding and someone that she knew back from her old hometown growing up. Both of these characters dread going home for the holidays for different reasons, but after their chance meeting, they plot to go home together, pretending to be a couple as a way to mitigate some of their respective fears. Fake dating, fun and games ensue, and the book features both of their perspectives. There are some definite cozy vibes of this book, along with forced proximity, friends to lovers, and a good amount of Christmas cheer. Like most holiday books, we aren't doing anything new here, but it provided mostly what I was looking for in a holiday rom-com with some extra smut. This book also brought a good sense of closure to the various subplots, which I appreciated. Honestly, this was my favorite Kindle Unlimited Christmas read this year. Okay, I know what you're thinking. How could I rank One Day in December, what I did when I complained about the sadness and regret in a Christmas book, but then proceed to rank a Nicholas Sparks book, number 2 on this list? The difference is the promise, okay? With One Day in December, I was promised a Christmas romantic comedy, and I didn't feel like I got one. But when you pick up a Nicholas Sparks book, you know you're gonna get emotionally wrecked. You know there will be some heavy topics. You know you're gonna cry the last 40 pages of the book. I definitely did. That's just part of the deal. And sometimes I need a good cry, This book follows a female main character who is a renowned travel photographer and co-owner of this gallery. She is also more recently a YouTuber documenting her cancer journey for her online audience. She unfortunately isn't given much longer to live by her doctor. Like many of Nicholas Sparks' classic novels, this story features a past and present timeline, the present timeline taking place the week of Christmas, and that past timeline taking place many years earlier when she was 16, pregnant, and had met what in many ways was the true love of her life. I thought the setting of this book was beautiful. I loved the small town vibes of the setting of the past timeline. I loved the young love. This was definitely a slow burn friends to lovers. But, I wasn't bored because I do think Sparks is a good storyteller and he tells a good story. In terms of holiday cheer, maybe the cheer part is a bit of a stretch. But I did like the holiday framing of this story and felt like reading this in this season did add something special to my reading experience. This was my favorite holiday romance this season that didn't have a true happily ever after. I mean, the main character has cancer and is dying, so you go into it knowing at least mostly how that part's gonna go. Even in knowing that, I still sobbed like a baby at the end. But I wouldn't say that the ending was hopeless. In fact, there was hope at the end, and is ultimately why I walked away from this book feeling satisfied. It's a story of love, forgiveness, regrets, and making amends. I just think that gets at the heart of what Christmas should be about. All right, and coming in at the top of my list is Lovelight Farms. This book was one of the most recommended Christmas romances I came across this season. This book follows the FMC, who is the new owner of this Christmas tree farm, and it's been secretly struggling. Between financial woes and outside factors impacting the farm itself, the main character enters into this social media contest in an effort to keep the place that she's loved since a child afloat. However, in order to sell her story in this contest, she lies in her application and claims to be running the business with her significant other, someone who doesn't actually exist. Her longtime best friend and the man that she's been secretly in love with for many years then agrees to fake date her for this contest. So this is fake dating, friends to lovers, warm, cozy, Hallmark, holiday magic, all of that. The reason this book comes out at number 1 for me is I just felt like it was the most balanced holiday romance read with smut that I read this season. It doesn't do too much of anything, it doesn't try to be anything it's not. My only gripe with this book is that the friends seem to already be in love with each other, and it kind of made me wonder, why weren't these two people just already dating? But, people are complicated. I'm forgiving, and I didn't find this gripe to be overly distracting to the rest of the story for me. There was some smut, but it definitely wasn't the main focus. It's not gonna change your life, but it made me happy. It's that solid, just right Christmas read for me. And that concludes my ranking. Thanks for watching, and happy holidays.